Okay, and that's even better. Planning Commission meeting of October 6, 2021 will come to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Secretary will call roll, please.
Commissioner Hodge is absent. Commissioner Gray is absent. Commissioner Rice.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Tolson.
Here.
Chairperson Mann.
Here. May I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Motion was made by Vice Chair Tolson and seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Rice. Unless there's any objections, that's pretty easy. The agenda stands approved. We have no minutes to approve because we're in a short turnaround from the last meeting. Declaration of conflict. The Secretary will please read the declaration of conflict.
If any member of the Planning Commission may have a conflict of interest or any reason why that member must abstain from consideration of any matter on this agenda, he or she should so declare at this time.
Are there any declarations of conflict? Hearing none. Public statements. This is the time allotted for public statements or comments on all items other than public hearing items. Due to the closure of the City Council chamber to the public in compliance with the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N2920, public statements are to be accommodated via Zoom. Did we receive any requests from any individual who would like to make a public statement?
No, Chairman.
Yes, Chairman and members of the Planning Commission, the applicant for item 11B2 is here, and he'll like to speak during his section.
Okay.
Other than that, no other public statements or correspondence were received.
Okay, no correspondence. We have nothing on consent. We have no continued business. We're moving on to new business. First item of new business we have as 11A1. I believe that there's going to be somewhere a motion to continue to the November 17th, 2021 meeting. That would be from either you or Commissioner Hodge, Commissioner Rice.
I move we continue this till November 11th.
November 17th.
Exactly. It's November 17th.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to continue public hearing item 1A to November 17th, 2021. Do we need a formal vote or just consent?
I think that'd be consensus.
Okay, so consensus is to go ahead and continue it to 11/17/2021. Okay, moving on to 11B, Community Development Block Grant Advisory Committee.
Yes, good evening. Again, members of the Planning Commission, it is requested that the Planning Commission nominate one Planning Commissioner to the Community Development Block Grant Advisory Committee for a 3-year term beginning on January 1st, 2022 and ending on December 31st, 2024. Although the period is for 3 years, the committee conducts its duties from January through June before the start of each CDBG program year. For next year's program year of 2022-23, the committee will convene from January to June of 2022. A little bit of history. Back in August 2006, the City Council established the 5-member CDBG Advisory Committee to provide funding recommendations on annual applications. And in 2009, the City Council modified the terms of service to request the appointed commissioner to serve as a chairperson of the committee, and that this commissioner has served as chairperson on the commission. The Planning Commission nominee is appointed directly by the Planning Commission and does not require City Council concurrence. Our Senior Management Analyst, Julio Ramirez, is on Zoom if you have any more specific questions. And at this point, we could take nominations.
So, point of clarification, I believe the only two, but actually I guess there's 3 of us that are qualified. That would be myself, Commissioner Rice and Commissioner Hodge. Is that
Yes, and
correct?
Ms. Ramirez, if you could hear us, I believe Commissioner Hodge is on the committee now, and he's completed his term.
Yes, good evening. He will complete his term as of December 31st.
Okay. Is there anything that says he can't do 2 terms in one time? Teach him to miss tonight's meeting?
Well, he's not there to
Defend
accept the
himself.
nomination, I suppose.
Defend himself. Okay. Commissioner Rice?
I think that if we can't come up with something, then I think we should continue this to the next meeting, because with 2 commissioners not here.
But they can't be on it anyways.
Yeah, well,
So
that's true.
So it's either you or me. I've never done it.
I think you should do it.
Have you done it?
I've done it. Julia is a great person to work with. She's very well organized and very thorough. And it's
Is that a
pretty-
motion?
Yeah, I make a motion for Chairperson Mann.
And I'll second that motion.
Great. I would say all those in favor, but I know how this is going to run. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fine with taking it
It's-
because I've never done it before.
I think it's a good thing to do.
Fantastic.
You learn a lot about the city and where, this money goes, and I think it's a good thing. Yeah.
Okay. Again, do we need a formal vote or can we do consent since I'm the one accepting it?
I would think you should vote.
Okay. Then we'll call for a formal vote. Am I voting, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you can vote for yourself.
You don't have a conflict.
Okay. Did you lock your vote in? Okay, good.
The motion passes 3-0 with Commissioner Hodge and Commissioner Gray absent.
Okay, at some point, staff will tell me what exactly I need to do, correct?
Yes, I will. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Good night, Julia.
Good night.
Okay, got a script here for a minute. Next one is Tree Advisory Board.
Yes, good evening, Chairman Mann, members of the Planning Commission. As one of the Planning Commission's functions, they also serve as the Tree Advisory Board. Tonight, we have a consideration of a resident request to remove a street tree located at 3427 Texas Avenue. Our Deputy Public Works Director, Chris Oberender, is here to provide a presentation. Go ahead, Chris.
Good evening, Chairman, Mann, Planning Commission members, and members of the public. This evening, staff is presenting to the Planning Commission a request by Mr. Peter Seth Hunter to remove a mature Canary Island pine from the parkway in front of his home located at 3427 Texas Avenue. Staff has also handed out for your information our staff report with attachments for your review and reference. The city currently maintains approximately 30,000 trees throughout the city within our inventory, with the majority of those trees located within the street right-of-way. Regular maintenance of these trees consists primarily of trimming with the intermittent need for removal and replacement of a tree for reasons such as poor health, excessive damage to public or private property, or if they represent an ongoing public hazard. The applicant, Mr. Peter Seth Hunter, has requested that the Planning Commission consider his request to remove an approximately 55-year-old canary pine tree located in front of his home on Texas Avenue. Due to occasional damage to his roof tiles from falling pine cones, the applicant's pictures are included in your packet for reference, and lifting to his nearby walkway. This tree was most recently trimmed on November 15th, 2019, with a tree health inspection completed by our city's arborist on June 21st, 2021, which found it to be healthy. An approximate value of $25,000 has been given to this particular specimen by the city's arborist. Staff had received Mr. Seth Hunter's request for removing the tree earlier this year and subsequently denied it, as it was determined that the proximity of the tree from his home and the minor damage to the walk were minimal when compared to the overall health and value of the tree as neighborhood and urban forest amenities. On rare occasions, staff receives requests from residents or business owners asking the city to remove a tree. Reasons for removals may include dislike of the specific species, a desire to eliminate falling leaves, needles, pine cones, or fruit, and elimination of an ongoing hazard to either public or private property, such as damage to a foundation wall or other personal property or public improvement. Staff evaluated the tree's overall value to the urban landscape contribution and determined that the tree was a sufficient distance from the home that pine cone damage would be very limited. In addition, repair of the minor sidewalk deviance could be easily fixed by city forces and would mitigate any hazard to pedestrians. Staff has also provided in your packet additional pictures of the location along with the city's current street tree removal and tree trimming policy. Staff has provided 4 alternatives in the staff report for the Commission's consideration and invites any questions, comments, and feedback from the Commission on this item. Michael Sandoval, our city's landscape superintendent, is also here in attendance with me tonight. This concludes our portion of the presentation, and we are available to answer your questions.
Do any commissioners have any questions of staff?
No.
I do. How far is the tree from the house?
It's approximately 30 feet. If the slide number, there we go. If you look at the position of the trunk in proximity to the roof, and the canopy falls probably 15 to 20 feet away from any roof tiles, the tree itself is about 30 to 35 feet away from the home.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was the date that the city went out there and trimmed the tree?
November 2019.
Yes, November 15th of 2019.
Was that part of a regular routine tree maintenance, or is that a case-by-case, somebody called in and said the tree is top-heavy, and you guys went out and trimmed it?
Regular tree maintenance.
Regular maintenance?
Mhm.
How often are trees either inspected or regularly maintained?
It depends on the species of tree. This particular tree is anywhere from 2 to 5 years, based upon the ISA standards, which arborists use to maintain and trim trees with.
Okay. And I think I had one more question.
In the packet, there's a picture of the broken tiles on the roof. Is there a date on that picture? Do you know?
No, I don't believe so. That would be the picture in your packets.
Right.
Those trees were recently taken by the applicant, but I did not see a date on those.
Okay. I didn't see their own either.
The applicant will be here to respond to that question.
Beautiful.
Okay, back to me. From the inspection dated or date reviewed 6/21/21, no, that can't be.
June of 2021.
Oh, yeah, okay. Signs of lean, yes. Is there a certain parameter as to how far a tree is leaning before it becomes problematic and/or subject to being removed?
I'm going to let our city's arborist, Michael Sandoval, who's the superintendent of the landscape section, answer that question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sandoval.
Particular tree, it has a corrective lean, which means it began to lean at one point in time, and then it grew into its current position. So that means it's stable in its current position. It's also had a stability test done on it about 4 years ago just to determine that.
Okay, thank you.
What's involved with the stability test?
With the stability test, what we do is we run a rope about 2/3 of the way up the tree. We stretch it out between 2 different anchors, and we simulate the wind forces that we encounter here in Simi Valley.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, when was the stability test done again?
We don't have the record on that one, but it was done 4 years ago.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, any other questions? Okay, then let's go ahead and open up the public hearing portion of the meeting. And I believe we have Mr. Pete Seth Hunter, who will be speaking.
Yes, I'm here
Oh.
presently.
Please, thank you. Please, go ahead.
I'm coming before you this evening in regards to the tree, which has caused considerable damage to the tiles on the roof of my house. This tree is approaching 60 feet tall, and it's clearly overgrown the position that it's been planted in. If you look at the pictures, it almost spans the width of the curb, between the curb and the sidewalk, and it has cracked the curb and lifted the sidewalk. And the city has addressed that. They've come out and ground the sidewalk down to lessen the chance of trip and falls. And before we go any further, let me say I'm a tree lover. It's unfortunate that this tree has grown so large and is causing damage to my house. As far as parking in front of my house, my son's car and my neighbor's car have both been damaged by falling unblossomed pine cones. My car in the driveway has also has dents in the roof of the car from falling pine cones. I would very much like to be able to repair my roof. I've got a count of 6 tiles that are broken up there, which has occurred within the last year. When the winds kick up, those pine cones are like projectiles, rocks that are launched off that tree because it's swaying back and forth, the branches, and they travel at significant velocity, and they break the tiles on my roof. So I don't want to repair it now and have to do it again within a year. I don't want to have to continually have the expense of repairing my roof. If we can get this tree removed and plant another tree in its place, I would support that 100% because I enjoy a tree-lined street. But when its tree starts causing the kind of damage that it's causing, that has to be addressed. And the city has taken down numerous pine trees on my street for various reasons. And they have replaced it with a common variety, which is I'm not sure of the name of the variety, but it's a nice looking tree. And I would much prefer to have a tree in my front yard. If the city wants a tree in my front yard, I would prefer to have a tree that doesn't damage my property. That's the bottom line of my statement here. I don't know what else I can do to stop this tree from damaging my house. Can I put up a net? I don't want to put up a net to have this tree stop damaging my house. Can we trim it? I think we can. Obviously we can. And that might reduce the amount of damage that occurs to my house, but it's not going to stop it. I'm at the point now where I don't know what else to do. I like living on this street, but having this tree in front of my house is giving me reason to consider moving. I don't want to live in a bomb zone, if you'll want to excuse that. And then there's other minor issues that come into play. All the branches and pine needles and pine cones that are deposited in the valleys of my roof, they don't blow off. If you look at the photo evidence I have there, it's a significant fire hazard. And it also impedes the proper drainage of my roof if we should happen to get any more rain. I've spoken with Ron Fuchiwaki, Director of Public Works, and he suggested that I bring this to your attention, and here I am. I'm a frustrated person because every time I go out in my front yard, I look up at that tree and I feel like I have to dodge the next projectile that it's going to drop. And my neighbor as well, he has also made an issue of the tree because of the damage it's caused to his house. And to his car. And that was, the city pretty much told him, well, there's nothing we can do about it. We maintain the tree, so we're not liable. And That statement in itself really raises the hair on the back of my neck, because when you say we're not liable because we did the maintenance on the tree, I find it very similar to a statement like saying, well, the city truck went through your house, but we do the maintenance on the brakes, so we're not liable. I appreciate all the efforts that the city has put towards maintaining that tree, but maintaining the tree is not going to stop the damage that it's causing. Removing it and possibly replacing it is the only solution I see. And that's my presentation in a nutshell. I hope you can see my point, and please feel free to come out to my house and stand in my entry and look up at this huge tree over your head. It's concerning.
Okay, thank you very much. Do any commissioner have any question of Mr. Seth Hunter?
I don't have any questions.
I'm going to steal your question then. When were the photos taken of the roof, sir?
In June, July.
Okay.
I started this process about that. It was in June, early June.
Okay. If we have
I started.
Sorry, go ahead.
I put in a request for with David Caceres and Mike Sandoval and Ron Fuchiwaki.
Okay. If we have no other questions, then I'm going to go ahead and close the public portion of this hearing. And now we can, anybody have any, does staff want to respond to any of the statements made during the public testimony of this?
No. Unless there's questions.
Do any commissioners have any questions of staff at this point?
I have no questions of staff at this point.
One question. Other trees in the same block that have been removed, do you know when the most recent tree was removed?
I've taken a drive of Texas Avenue, and this particular tree grouping, there's probably about 70 canary pines of this exact size and age along the street. If you'll look, let's see, on one of the slides, probably 5 or 6, let's chip through them a little bit to get, I have a north-south viewing. So in this picture here, looking south, you can see the 3 canary pines. The particular one in front of Mr. Seth Hunter's is the farthest one of the 3 in this picture. And there's 2 more canary pines of equivalent age and size. If you'll notice, on the other side of the street, there were at one time probably a similar spacing and grouping of trees on the other side of the street. And through time, either because they died or something happened to them or were removed, the streetscape has changed a little bit on that side of the street due to the loss of those trees. If you go to the north view, though, and you look, you'll see more trees of a similar nature on the other side of the street as well. And the streetscape with this tree grouping in here was planted by the developer to create kind of a heritage look, a theme for that neighborhood. And we're trying to preserve that theme because that was the intent of the developer. And it really is quite beautiful as you work your way up the street and look at this theme of these beautiful trees. And I understand the concern of the residents, but the overall aesthetic and amenity to the urban forest in the area and to the whole community presents a real nice appearance, where if we remove those trees and try to plant something smaller, it just doesn't, it's never going to create the same kind of look for us.
In the staff report, it said that the tree was approximately 55 years old. How many years can this tree go? You know, what's the expected life expectancy?
Our city arborist has explained to me that the lifetime on this particular tree species is around 100 years. So this tree is really, as long as it stays healthy and viable, it can last another 50 years easily and be, you know, looking the same way along this corridor.
Past the point of us being here. Got it? That's it for me.
Yeah, I have no questions.
Can I add a comment?
Well, let's see. I'm going to have to open up the public part of the hearing again.
Oh, no, that's okay. I don't want to do that. I just wanted to comment on what was said, and if it's going to be a technical issue, I'll just stay
No,
out.
no, let's, I'm going to open up the public portion of the hearing again. So go ahead, Mr. Seth Hunter.
If that tree were to remain in that position for another 10 years, it would break out the sidewalk. And the hydrant that's right next to that tree, within 4 feet of that tree, the washout hydrant, the roots would overtake that hydrant and break it. There are numerous trees on my street that have been replanted with similar varieties that look beautiful. I don't want to get into a match game here of what tree looks better, but there are numerous trees that have been replanted on my street.
Okay.
That's all I have to say. I think the city needs to also consider that hydrant and the proximity of it to the tree. It's the city inspector or the city person came out and made record of it being 4 feet from the hydrant. That 60-foot pine tree, 55-foot pine tree is 4 feet from a water hydrant. I mean, common sense has got to come into play here.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close the public portion of the hearing again. Does staff have any questions or comments regarding the last statements from the public?
Yes, Chairperson. Staff has evaluated the particular proximity of the tree and the fire hydrant, along with the amenities of the sidewalk and curb and gutter. As mentioned, the sidewalk and curb and gutter have been observed, and repairs have made to the sidewalk to keep it safe and non-hazardous. I'm also a civil engineer and can say that the tree is being a good citizen in this case, and its proximity to that fire hydrant, which is now also 55 years old. It hasn't disturbed it in that 55 years, and I don't expect it to disturb it for another 55 years.
Okay. So I guess one of my questions now is, are most of the trees that are in the photos that you've shown of similar size, height, width, girth, whatever, so they're taking up the entire area of the parkway, or is this some kind of random freak tree that it's huge compared to the rest, and the rest are, or they're all about the same?
No, they're all pretty much the same size and all the same age. By good citizen, I mean that this tree actually, in the space that it's occupying, to not really be lifting up the sidewalk or damaging the curb and gutter, it's really being a very good citizen in that respect. Of the 70 trees up and down that street, there are 5 or 6 that are disturbing the sidewalk and curb and gutter a little more. It depends on the actual tree, where it's located, how much water it's getting down deep, as to whether it's trying to get surface water or not. This particular tree is really not trying to get any surface water. It's already tapped into a water source very deep down into the ground, and it's taking care of itself that way, and it doesn't need to send out a lot of surface roots to disturb anything like the sidewalk to get moisture underneath from condensation or the curb and gutter. This is the only damage it's done in 55 years. It's really doing quite well in that space.
And I'm assuming at some point, do trees stop growing? I mean, this tree is not going to continue getting taller and wider, or is it going to? Or has this tree pretty well its maximum size?
I'm going to leave that question to our arborist.
Okay.
Mr. Sandoval.
Mr. Sandoval, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back. The trees will grow to what their container size is, so it's pretty much maxed out its size.
Okay. That's it. See, all that walk, all that for just that. Thank you very much. Any other questions that we have? Okay. So from what I read in the staff report, there's really 3, well, there's probably others, but 3 main choices. Recommend the city to remove the tree, recommend the city not to remove the tree, allow the citizen to remove the tree at his expense under an encroachment permit, or, I guess the 4th one, provide other direction to staff. So, gentlemen, what's the thought process?
I will be happy to go if that's all right with you, Chairperson. This is a beautiful street, and the trees on the street are absolutely gorgeous. And I understand the frustration of Mr. Seth Hunter, and you know, especially if it's hitting your roof, and that would be kind of terrifying, especially in the middle of the night. And I understand that, but I mean, it's part of the amenity of the city is having these amazingly beautiful trees on that street. It's a very nice street. It's one of the better streets in Simi Valley. And my fear is that for this beautiful tree to be cut down and replaced with some tree that, you know, would take probably 50 years to get to that same size, if it ever did, that what it would do is it would just kind of open the floodgates and other people would start cutting down their trees or, you know, pushing to have that done too. And the city, we would not be a Tree City USA anymore. These trees need to be taken care of, and I understand the frustration, but I'm against removing this tree.
Vice Chair Tolson?
I drove up and down that street recently to inspect what we're talking about tonight. And I was thinking that the curb was going to be, or the sidewalk was going to be really obstructed. The picture is kind of deceiving. I see almost zero lifting of that curb or the sidewalk. I mean, there's no challenges there. And I understand that the city will come out and grind down whatever might coming up. To be honest, there's other trees along the street that have much more damage to the sidewalk than this, and I was looking for some major challenges or issues at this single tree, and I didn't see any. So I'm not in favor of cutting it down at city expense.
Okay. Bottom line is, my practical experience is I had a tree in front of my old house. It was a magnolia tree, beautiful tree, but it would drop these cones that would explode and either do damage to people's cars, or it would hurt like heck if you walked on them. When you mowed the lawn, it would like shoot these things out like projectiles. I actually called the city and found out what my options are, and they were very nice about, look, we can trim it, we can do this, we can do that, but the end result is if you want the tree removed, you can remove it with an encroachment permit at your expense, and you'd have to plant a similar tree. So I decided that, you know what, and that was not having to pay for the tree. Remember, if this was the development, the developer would be paying roughly the $25,000 to remove the tree. So I think the city is somewhat generous by saying, you guys can remove the tree, or I could remove the tree and replant it without having to pay for the value of that tree. But I decided that, you know what, I just won't park my car there, I'll live with it, and life would be good. In this case, I mean, the trees are beautiful. I am not a big fan of cutting down what I would consider a healthy tree. In Mr. Seth Hunter's defense, if the tree is damaging his property, certainly something could be done, which would be to give him the option at that point to remove the tree at his expense and plant something of similar, not of size, but of a similar tree or a city-approved tree. We would let the city dictate to that. At some point, everybody has a tolerance for how much pain they want to live with. If I think we give him that option to remove it and he decides to do it, great. If he decides not to do it, then so be it, is what it is. I'm just not a big fan of having the city remove a tree that is not damaged, which is why I asked the questions about, you know, if the tree has any problems, if the sign is the leaning, if there's a potential legal issue and it was leaning by some big extent, yeah, maybe more way to go ahead and remove it. But thank you, Mr. Sandoval, for answering the question about the tree is growing as it's supposed to be growing. So my recommendation would be to go with number 3, which is it doesn't meet the city tree removal criteria. I recommend the city not to remove the tree, but allow the resident to remove. But that's just my thought. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts? Because one of you two need to make a motion.
There we go. I would be more inclined to go with option 2, which was to just leave the tree as is.
Okay?
Because I think the problem is even if he takes it down and he replaces it, we're talking a 15-inch box tree or something like that, or, you know, if we're, and that's not the same thing as a 55-year-old tree. It's not even remotely close.
Correct.
So I think that would be harmful to the city in the long run. So that's
Okay.
my feeling.
Vice Chair Tolson? Either one of you, feel free to make a motion at the same time.
Commissioner Tolson, did you have?
I can vacillate between 2 and 3, either one.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we adopt option number 2. I don't have that paper. No scripts.
Make it up.
Make it up.
That's it?
That's it. Just make a motion that we adopt, that we leave the tree, determine that the tree does not satisfy the tree removal criteria and recommend that the tree not be removed.
Okay,
That's my motion.
so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Rice. We have a second by Vice Chair Tolson. Call for the vote.
Motion passes 3-0 with Commissioner Hodge and Commissioner Gray absent.
Thank you. So since there's no script, is there an appeal process on this, or this is it? Because what I've read, I think this is the final consideration.
It's my understanding. I could look into it further.
Okay.
But for right now, I believe this is the end.
Okay. If something changes, we'll certainly notify Mr. Hunter of what the city determines. Okay, moving on. Number 3, special presentation on Senate Bill 8, 9, and 10.
Good evening again, Chairman Mann and members of the Planning Commission. We prepared a special presentation. It was a request to provide you an update on California State Senate Bills 8, 9, and 10, which were adopted earlier in September. These are housing-related bills, and this is just focusing on these 3 particular bills. There's another couple dozen bills which were also recently updated, and we'll be making a presentation to the City Council later on that. But we're going to focus on 3 of the bigger, more prominent bills. And I'd like to introduce our new Associate Planner, Elizabeth Richardson. She will be doing the presentation tonight once the screen is shared. Is the screen shared on Zoom as well? And once we get that going, we'll have her start her presentation. Go ahead.
Good evening. Tonight am I on? Is my microphone on? Yes, it is. Thank you. Good evening. Tonight we will be providing an update on 3 new state housing bills, SB 8, SB 9, and SB 10. The purpose of these 3 bills are to further assist with promoting and streamlining the process of building additional housing in California. These new Senate bills will go into effect on January 1st of 2022. In October of 2019, the governor approved SB 330, also known as the Housing Crisis Act. This bill, combined with the Housing Accountability Act, sets timing and regulations in order to streamline development of affordable housing projects. On September 16, 2021, the governor signed Senate Bills 8, 9, and 10, which further streamlines the process for construction of housing. SB 8 extends SB 330 through January of 2030 and continues to streamline the process of approving and constructing housing projects. SB 9 allows homeowners to build 2 units on a property zoned for single-family homes, and it also allows homeowners to split their lots and build 2 additional homes for a total of 4 units. And SB 10 allows the city to upzone properties to permit 10 residential units per lot without discretionary approval or environmental review. SB 8 is an amendment to the Housing Accountability Act. The HA establishes limitations to the city's ability to deny, reduce the density of, or make infeasible housing development projects, emergency shelters, or farm worker housing that are consistent with the objective local development standards and contribute to meeting housing needs. The HA was first enacted in 1982, and the most recent amendments provide clarification and additional definitions to the Act. The bill also expands the definitions of housing development projects, restricts downsizing of density on properties that can accommodate high-density housing, and focuses the benefit of the law on low-income housing projects to accommodate 100% affordable projects. The bill also provides clarification on rules for converting low-income housing to supportive or assisted living, as well as clarifying projects protected under the HA and eligible for a maximum of 5 hearings to process a project. The bill extends the expiration of the Housing Crisis Act to January 1st of 2030. Next is SB 9, which is a new housing law that promotes small-scale neighborhood residential development by creating a streamlined process for homeowners to make duplexes or subdivide their existing single-family lot. Qualified properties would be reviewed by the city and approved without discretionary review. Eligible properties must be located in an urbanized area in a single-family zone. An eligible property must also be located outside of the very high fire hazard zone, flood zone, fault zone, and wildlife corridors. The residence cannot be an affordable unit, and additionally, the residence could not have been rented in the last 3 years. The residence also could not have been a residential hotel in the last 15 years, and demolition of the structure is limited to less than 25% of the floor area. Finally, the property cannot be located in a historic district, nor can it be listed as a historic landmark on a state or local register. And this exhibit shows the areas of the city where eligible SB 9 properties are located based on zoning only. However, as this exhibit shows, areas of the city that are eligible for expansion under SB 9, once the ineligible zones are removed, which are shown up here in purple, shown in purple, the areas of the high fire zone area, which is shown up here in red, the Alquist-Priola fault zone, which is located on the north end of the city, shown here in the white stripe. Wildlife corridors are shown in green, surrounding the city, and the 100-year flood zones are shown in blue. SB 9 provides certain criteria for subdividing a lot. These regulations limit a total of 2 lots to be created. Each lot must be a minimum of 1,200 square feet and cannot be less than 40% of the lot area of the original lot. A maximum of 2 new units can be constructed on each lot. However, if the original lot already has a single-family residence, an ADU, and/or a JADU constructed on it, then 2 new residential units are allowed to be constructed on the new lot, and no additional units may be constructed on the already developed lot. Each lot can only be split 1 time using the rules of SB 9. Conditions on the map are limited to easements for public services and facilities, access to the new parcel from the public right-of-way, and requiring minimum parking of 1 space per dwelling unit. The city may not place conditions on the map that would require dedication of public right-of-way or construction of off-site improvements. SB 9 also limits the development standards the city can place on development of an eligible lot. The city must allow a minimum of an 800 square foot unit to be constructed on an eligible property, and rear and side yard setbacks are limited to 4 feet. The city, however, may implement their own front yard and street side setbacks. Parking for each unit is required to be a minimum of 1 parking space per unit. SB 9 also requires all units to be rented for a minimum of 30 days, and the subdivider must occupy one of the units as a principal residence for at least 3 years. The use of the property remains residential, and new construction must meet the requirements of the building code, and if the building official finds evidence of a life safety hazard, the new unit may be denied. If the existing structures are non-compliant to zoning and building code requirements, they're only required to meet the required building codes. Next is SB 10, which is intended to allow cities to streamline the process to upzone urban infill properties in transit-rich areas for a maximum of 10 units per parcel. Areas located in very high fire hazard zones or voter-restricted open space areas are ineligible. Rezones would be exempt from environmental review. However, if a project proposes more than 10 units per parcel, it is not an eligible property for development under SB 10. Next steps for the city in this process will be to adopt an emergency ordinance to codify requirements of SB 9, adopt an ordinance for objective design standards, and adopt code text amendments for consistency with the new state laws. And this concludes staff's presentation. Staff is available for questions of the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Do any commissioners have any questions of staff?
I do.
Please.
I think you said it there really quickly, but you said that if somebody was going to, I think this was SB 9, if somebody was going to develop their lot and put in 2 duplexes, that they couldn't own the adjoining lot. Is that correct? Or they couldn't develop the adjoining lot?
So I think we accidentally left that out. But yes, you are correct that a property owner cannot subdivide their lots under SB 9 if they are adjacent to each other. That is correct.
Right, and they have to live in it for 3 years.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that's clear.
Right.
Correct,
Okay,
that is
thanks.
So
correct.
you can't go down the street and keep buying up properties.
Well, you could every 3 years.
Potentially, or
If
maybe
you-
every other lot.
You'd have to skip it. That would be a crazy way to do development, but you'd have to skip a lot every 3 years. I don't know, whatever. That's crazy. Okay.
Mr. Tolson?
Yeah, if I split a lot and it becomes 2 different lots, does that become, the second lot can be sold and I can stay in the first lot? How does that work?
The way we're understanding these new regulations, yes, you would be able to sell off the second lot and live in the first lot.
Could you sell off the second lot and?
Because you do have to live there for 3 years, but
Okay.
obviously you could rent. The second lot becomes a legal parcel, so you can sell that off to someone else or rent it if you want to still own it.
Okay, thank you.
Under SB 10, so there's no restrictions for flood or fault zone, just the high fire severity area?
No, on SB 10, they're very specific to the fault zone and the voter participation open space.
So there is restriction is there a restriction for the flood zone for SB 10 or no?
No,
And for the fault zone?
no,
So just the fire area?
correct.
Okay.
Also on SB 10, there is reference to the high-quality transit corridor, which the city may not qualify because we don't have fixed bus route service every 15 minutes. So we might not even be applicable for SB 10. In addition, SB 10 is voluntary, so the city council would have to choose to invoke this provision. So it's not an automatic thing happening.
Okay. Let's go back to SB 9. Is there a minimum lot size to be split?
There's not a minimum lot size to split, but however, the resulting lot, there is a minimum of 1,200 square feet
For the lot?
for the lot. So if you were, so under SB 9, if you were to split your lot, each lot needs to be 1,200 square feet.
I think I've heard on some other publications, 2,400 square feet, so 2 1,200 square foot lots. So we really don't have too many 2,400 square foot lots in the city, fortunately.
Okay, so if I have an acre, I can split it, so I can have 2 1/2 acre parcels. I sell off the other parcel to Commissioner Tolson. Can he then split his lot that he now owns into 2 more lots again?
No, we believe not. You can't re-subdivide lots that were subject to this initially, so you can't keep splitting and splitting like that.
Okay,
So So the city would have to put together a database of all these SB9 properties that are created to make sure that they aren't re-subdivided.
So everybody you get one bite at the apple, as they
You
say.
get one
So
bite at the
you
apple is
split
from
it
what
once and no more.
what I'm seeing. And again, there's some ambiguities in these new laws. We expect possibly some clarification next year on some of these definitions and whether is for the cap or with the ADUs that are pre-existing, would you end up with 5 or 6 units? So there's a few things which will be clarified over the weeks and months ahead. So just to, lots of scenarios come up. So questions like this will continue to arise and will need interpretation.
Okay.
I have another question, actually. So if I had a lot and I split the lot so that I had 2 duplexes on the lot, could I have a ADU?
The way that the code is written is that, or the way that the law is written is that you get four total units. So if the lot has 1 house on it, they divide it.
Uh-huh.
The new lot gets 2 units,
Right?
and the previous lot is eligible to add 1 more unit.
So I can still add an ADU?
Well, not if you have a duplex.
No?
A
So I
duplex-
can't add an ADU or a JADU if I...
No.
Okay, all right.
That would take you over the allowed
Okay.
2 units per lot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, back to, again, this may be a scenario. I have a lot, I split it. I'm now going to keep that lot as a rental unit, and I want to build a property on it. Am I paying for all the same connection fees as if it was a separate lot, or? I'm gonna try to reword this. If I want to do a ADU on my property, it's not separately metered, correct, under the current law? So they would come off my utilities. Not a problem. I could sub-meter, I could do whatever I wanted to do with it. If I make a separate lot and I want to actually bring in sewer, gas, electric, and water, am I paying service connection fees because that's a new lot, or because the lot, I've already paid for them to come onto the main lot?
Right.
Am I exempt from having to pay those again? Or is that a question that's not been answered yet?
Chairman, I think that's a question that staff would have to research
Okay.
and come back with
Perfect.
an answer.
I think one of the
Bunch of scenarios that are going to come into play here.
One of the prominent ones, I think there's some back and forth on what fees you may have to pay.
Right.
I'm sure it's because it's a subdivision, you can impose certain fees, and we're looking into that. But one of the more specific ones is that we cannot require additional dedications of off-site improvements. So
Right.
you may not have to install a sidewalk if the sidewalk's not there. So that's one of the interesting points of this SB9.
Okay. That's it for my questions.
And I'm sorry, and just one more thing on the very high fire hazard areas. We're believing they may be exempt from having to comply with SB9, but there is a little bit of wiggle room if there's mitigation measures to react to high fire construction. So that's one of the things that some of the attorneys that we're looking at, if there's exemptions to the allowing to build in high fire areas.
Okay.
So we're still checking on that to see if Simi Valley, when you saw on the map, almost half the city's in a very high fire hazard area. So we will need to confirm if this law would allow for SB9 to be implemented in those areas or not.
Can you bring up the map again? Sorry, the high fire severity area. Yeah, because that looks like it takes out most of the bridle path area and other properties that, in theory, would be prone to go ahead and take a large piece of property and subdivide it. If I'm reading this map correctly.
That is correct.
Okay.
So really the unshaded area, whatever single family in that area might be subject to this ordinance, while the shaded areas are potentially not applicable for this ordinance.
Man, this map is scary because it looks like most of Simi's either under the high fire severity area, or flood, or. Jeez. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm assuming as things come into play, we'll get more updates on 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, our next step is to look at preparing an ordinance to implement these into our code
Okay?
and potentially add special development standards such as architectural restrictions, so the houses that are constructed as a result of these lot splits are compatible with that surrounding neighborhood.
Right.
Without these design standards that we implement, then you may get a structure which is slightly different, like a non-tile roof structure in a tile roof neighborhood, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to look at some provisions, and that urgency ordinance might go directly to city council just because of the procedures. So it may
Correct.
bypass the planning commission initially.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Oral communications and reports. Staff.
Yes, Chairman Mann, members of the Planning Commission, I would like to officially introduce our new recording secretary, Stephanie Yates. I failed to mention last week. She did start last week, so she's again here tonight. We welcome her aboard to the planning team. And again, we thank Whitney Luxemburger for filling in these several meetings in the transition. So thank you both. And our next meeting for October 20th, we don't have any items at this point, so that meeting might be canceled.
Okay.
And that's all I have at this point.
Commissioners, any comments? Well, welcome, Stephanie. Whitney, sorry that you'll be leaving us, but feel free to come and visit anytime. Think of this, as kind of your home too. Okay, Mobile Home Rent Mediation Board,
No items.
Street Advisory Board.
No items.
Okay, with that said, we're going to adjourn this meeting of October 6th, 21 to a future date uncertain, since we don't know if we're going to be having one on the 20th of the month. With that, this meeting is adjourned.